It's the last bank holiday before Christmas. Autumn is on its way.
Ooh.
It's back to work, back to school.
Ooh.
But fortunately, we're back on track here at the British Athletics Championships in Birmingham. And we're waving goodbye to some big British medal hopes for the Worlds in Doha, and saying goodbye to this famous stadium as renovation starts before the Commonwealth Games 2022. This is Anything But Footy, the unashamedly biased Olympic and Paralympic sport podcast. I'm John.
And I'm Michael. It's been a wonderful weekend of sport. I'm not just talking about the cricket or the weather, but coming up inside the next half an hour or so, we will round up all the big stories from here at the British Championships. It's been a great weekend for Dina Asher-Smith. Another sprinter, Oji Udaburan, is also on that plane to Doha. We're hopefully going to be speaking to Adam Gemili very shortly as well. Plus we've got interviews with Holly Bradshaw and Eilish McColgan. That's the good news. The bad news is injury concerns for Reece Prescott and Laura Muir.
Elsewhere in the world of Olympic and Paralympic sport, British sailors prove they're ready, steady for Tokyo. Paralympic paddler Charlotte Henshaw wins 2 golds at the World Canoe Sprint Championships, and British hockey still have to be there in 2020.
And talking of big name interviews, we'll also be speaking to 4-time Olympic gold medalist on Anything But Footy. Laura Kenny will be joining us and talking Team GB and the nation's biggest sports day, and maybe some more gold medals in Tokyo.
It's an Olympics. You want to go and do your absolute best. I hope that at the end of this 4-year cycle, I'll be going just as well as I was at the end of the last 4-year cycle.
Now, if we miss your sport, tell us at AnythingButF on Twitter or message us on Insta and Facebook. Please share, like and rate us on iTunes or Spotify. We want to hear from you.
Let's start where we are right now, and we're currently sat on a couple of deck chairs outside the Alexander Stadium. They're just packing up wraps and wedges away to my right-hand side. Burgers and fries is over there as well.
The bins are quite full.
Yeah, and the portaloos are just away to our left-hand side if you need a comfort break at some point in the middle of the podcast. But yeah, it's just been a glorious couple of days of athletics, blue skies, and a real good send-off for this stadium as well.
And we mentioned Dina Asher-Smith, Dasher as you like to call her, a brilliant performance in the 100 metres. Good to see, she is a big hope for Britain at the Worlds and at Tokyo next year. Good to see her here at the British Championships. She could have easily gone to the Diamond League in Paris this weekend. She broke her own championship record in a very windy Alexander Stadium on Saturday. 10.96 was a great record for time for her, and victory ahead of Asher Phillip, who still needs a qualifying time if he's going to join Dina in Doha over the 100 metres. We assume Dina will go in the 200 metres as well, but she may not, but we think that will be the case. She came ahead of Asher Phillip and Daryl Neater as well. Congratulations to her. She really started these championships in flying fashion.
And it's interesting you say that she was here and she chose to run here ahead of going to the Diamond League meeting. I do think, and having been here across the weekend and spoken to a few of the athletes, there has been, I think, just a little bit of a mindset change with some of the athletes, because I think a few years ago some of our leading names, the likes of Dina Asher-Smith, felt they didn't need to turn up here. It's a question I'd like to put to Adam Gemili if we get the opportunity, as we hope to talk to him in a bit. Why some of those big names feel the need to come. I certainly feel there's been a bit of a mindset change, and they do now want to come and compete and make this the event it should be.
Absolutely, and we'll hear from Holly Bradshaw, who said she wanted to be here as well later on in the podcast. But the sprinters, as sometimes do dominate in these championships, a great performance in the men's 100 metres. In fact, it was a dead heat.
Yeah, I mean, Oji Udaburan has done really, really well to qualify for Doha in a pretty stacked field. A first ever senior title, beat Zarnell Hughes, Adam Gemili, CJ Uja are in there as well. That 10.18 time that you mentioned, awarded to all 3 medalists. So we are literally talking again about the thickness of a vest, aren't we, when we talk about those 100-metre sprinters.
And it means there's a big decision for the selectors, because Reece Prescott is the fastest man, or the reigning British champion. He was before yesterday in these championships. And of course, Zarnell Hughes is the fastest over 9 with 9.95 this year, and he finished third. But Udaburan and Gemili are going, because that's what happens if you win the race and finish second and have a qualifying time. You're going. So a big decision, but unfortunately, it looks like Prescott is going to miss out.
Yeah, I think potentially though he might have missed out anyway with injury. I mean, there's certainly been a couple of stories in the news today about Reece Prescott as well. With that injury, a hamstring injury, is a major doubt. He started his season in fantastic fashion.
Yeah, he did.
9.97 in Shanghai. Got injured in Oslo in the Diamond League. It's interesting because he chose not to compete in the indoor season, to focus everything on that outdoor season, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen for him. But I'm really pleased to say that Adam Gemili is coming to join us now. We had hoped to get him on Anything But Footy, and he joins us now on the podcast to talk about his success this weekend. Well done to you, Adam. Second in the 100 metres yesterday, we were just discussing that, and then a winner, and you're on the plane for both in the 200 metres today. Well done.
Yeah, job done really. Got automatic qualifying for both the 1 and the 2, which was the aim. Taking it out of sort of selectors' hands, because you never know, it could go any way with that. But yeah, so pleased. It was just pure emotion and relief to cross that line. I was really tired after the race. I was really, really exhausted. But yeah, like I said, to come here and book my spot for the 1 and the 2, it's the best feeling in the world, so I can't complain.
And I guess now you're going to go to Doha, double up on both?
100%, yeah. I didn't just do the 1 and the 2 here for the banter. No, I had to come here, and that was the aim. And like I said, to really come out and get those automatic qualifying spots. And I see my training partner Shara Proctor as well in the long jump did it. So we were the last 2 in our training group to sort of make the team. This was our trials were the last one, so we've done that. So I can go back to my training group, and the whole group's going to Doha, which is fantastic. And for me, like I said, it's a culmination of such a few big struggling years to come here and run such a good time, and it puts me in good stead going forward.
Yeah, no fireworks this year. I remember the fireworks going off and your leg going off with them once.
Yeah, that was 2015. First time running sub 10 and dipping for the line, and yeah, quite a nasty tear of my hamstring. But yeah, nice to sort of come here and yeah, like I said, just get the victory, healthy, happy, no fireworks, no pyrotechnics, nothing like that. So yeah, can't complain.
And 2 years ago, mixed emotions in London, with, you know, individually, but then of course world champions.
Absolutely, world champion in the relay. No one can ever sort of take that away from you becoming a world champion, and I was so grateful to be selected for that team, as I hadn't really performed individually, but I sort of put my head down, worked hard in the relay camps, and luckily got selected for that. Ran a decent leg, and was part of the team that quartet that won gold, and hopefully we can go and run even faster in Doha and defend our title. And I believe any 4 guys that get picked can go and do that. So really happy.
You've had the World Relays, you've had the Diamond League season. The World Championships is really late this year. Has that been a challenge?
It has been a challenge, but it's also worked out quite well for me. Tearing my hamstring in the World Relay Championships in May, it gave me a lot longer to sort of rehab that and spend a lot more time making sure it doesn't become recurrent. And I've done that. I'm back and fit and healthy. And like I said, yeah, this time, any other year, I'll be sort of winding the season down, getting ready for a nice holiday. But yeah, it was the same for everyone in the world. Everyone knew the timetable, so we just literally adjusted everything. I'll take less of an off season this year, getting ready for the Olympics as well. I'll probably take 2 weeks off and then get straight back into training. So no, it's the same for everyone really. So we planned for it.
Great to have you on Anything But Footy.
Thanks, man. Cheers. Thank you.
Adam Gemili, so often the bridesmaid, but maybe, just maybe this year, he might be able to get a World Championship medal as an individual. Of course, he's a World Champion, as he said, in the relay.
And an all-round good guy. You know, he's very well respected amongst the athletics, the track and field fraternity. The supporters love him. You know, he's done the usual selfie thing today. Interesting, of course, that, you know, he was the name that all the written journalists that were here today, from the Guardian, the Daily Mail, the Times, the Sun, all the other newspapers, he was the one they wanted to speak to. When he crossed that line, I think, as we were just talking there with Adam as he wanders off looking at us, you know, he punched the line as he went across it, and they all said, well, that's it, we've got our story. They're trying to fit that story in with what's happened in the cricket. It's going to be difficult for them, but, you know, Adam Gemili has sorted that out for them as far as athletics is concerned.
And we mentioned that Adam, you know, was here and competing and wanted to compete in front of a British crowd. So did Holly Bradshaw. She reached her season's best today with her performance in the pole vault and really won it quite comfortably. She has done so many times, becoming British champion, and it followed on from a brilliant performance on the opening day of these championships with Harry Koppel clearing 5.75 metres in the men's pole vault. It's a qualification for Doha and a personal best, and really great to see 2 of British athletes going to Doha and competing in the pole vault.
I'm Holly Bradshaw. I'm the British record holder in the pole vault.
And British champion once again.
Yeah, I mean 12th time indoor and out, so pretty pleased to also jump season's best and a championship best performance, so it's been a pretty good day for me, yeah.
And the British Championships mean a lot to you to come here because you have to wait a long time before it gets competitive. And I think you won on your first jump.
Yeah, I mean it's always similar. I kind of open up and then win on my first jump, so it's always kind of been that way. And yeah, it is difficult, but also I feel really lucky with the British fans, and for me to miss an opportunity to jump in front of them in such a great atmosphere and such a great stadium, there's no way I'd miss that opportunity. So although it's not ideal for a great performance, I love it, and the crowd get behind me and spur me on to a good performance, so I love it.
Because it was the Diamond League in Paris last night.
Yeah, exactly. I watched it with envy because Paris is obviously a great place to jump and the competition was really hot, but I was sat there thinking I'd rather be at the British Champs. My mum, my dad, my grandma, my granddad, auntie, husband, everyone's here, and I get to go out for food with them now, and yeah, I love being in front of a home crowd.
The last time, of course, the Alexander Stadium is as it is. All the work for the Commonwealth Games starts now.
Yeah, I mean, I had my first competition back here in 2010. It's going to be a little sad, but I've seen the plans for what it's going to be like, and I'm so excited. Actually, I was thinking about maybe retiring after 2021, and then all of a sudden they announced the Commonwealth Games are in Birmingham. I was like, well, that's another year in sport. I can't miss that opportunity.
Holly Bradshaw speaking to us on Anything But Footy. This is the unashamed Olympic and Paralympic podcast, and we are talking to you from the British Athletics Championships at the Alexander Stadium today. Other people then on that plane: Andy Butcher, Mark Scott in the men's 5,000 metres. They are automatically there. Rosie Clark, Elizabeth Bird in the steeplechase. Should just mention Rosie Clark retained her title, time of 9:46.66 as she beat Elizabeth Bird in what was a really exciting finish. Bird was just behind. Also, though, on the plane to the World Championships. Also, in the first day of competition here, shot putter Sophie McKenna won her first British outdoor title with a best throw of 17.97 metres to also secure her spot. And a huge list, probably too many, John, to go through, have qualified today.
Yeah, we mentioned, of course, Holly Bradshaw and Adam Gemili, but Ben Williams from the triple jump, Callum Wilkinson in the walk, Morgan Lake in the high jump. Great to see her performing, and she beat Katarina Johnson-Thompson in the competition today on countback, so well done to her. Jess Turner, Megan Beasley, 400-metre hurdles, Zach Zedden in the 3,000-metre steeplechase, Matthew Hudson-Smith in the 400-metre men's.
Yeah, just a fantastic list. You've got people like Nick Miller in the hammer thrower has qualified today, 400 metres. Lauren Nilsson, Emily Diamond. Great to see Jodie Williams back in amongst it after taking herself away. Hopefully she's going to appear on a future episode of Anything But Footy. Beth Dobbin as well in the 200 metres. Neil Gowley and Josh Kerr both there as well. An interesting race, of course, for the women with Shalana Austin-Clark and Lindsay Sharp both qualifying too.
And a brilliant performance again from Eilish McColgan, who we spoke to at the 10K in Highgate a few weeks ago. This was the 5K, and she's on her way to Doha.
Yeah, obviously it's a nice feeling come to your national champs. You always know that you need to be in the top two for qualification, but deep down, you've always got one eye on the British title, and it's actually a title that I've missed the last couple of years because I've always set off too slow, and then it's been turned into like a 300-metre sprint, and I was determined today to, I suppose, just use this as a good training run as well. You train so hard at a set pace, so why come into a race and run slower than that? So I wanted a good hard run out today. I probably went a little bit too hard considering it was 30 degrees and blowing a gale down the home straight. So maybe went off a little bit too hard. Didn't probably respect the conditions enough, but I still came away with the win today, so I can't complain too much.
Everyone knows Doha's going to be hot, of course. Does that come into your thinking today, that this is a hot day, so this is maybe just an opportunity to tweak something?
Yeah, do you know what, in Doha it's actually probably not going to be as hot as this because it's an air-conditioned stadium, so I definitely wasn't prepared for the heat today, that's for sure. I think it will be good having a little bit of a cooler stadium as well, and also it's in the evening, so it's not direct sunlight. Today was just direct sunlight, and honestly, around about 3K I remember thinking, right, I'm starting to fall off pace here a little bit more than I would have liked to. I did, slow quite a bit in that middle section, but I mean, everyone slowed, so I think, we maybe didn't respect the conditions well enough, but it's put me in a good position now that at least I know, worst comes to worst, if it is 30 degrees, then I've already raced in it, so I'll be prepared.
And you had a huge lead over the rest of the field, as you said. Part of the plan today was to go off and run at that time. How important then is this Birmingham crowd and the support that you get when you're out there on your own doing it the hard way?
Yeah, do you know what, it's a little scary. 600 to go, I was thinking, I don't know if I'm going to drop out or I'm going to win. I feel like it's one or the other, and I don't know if I'll make it, but the crowd was so good, and I think when you're almost, I was running scared, you know, the last 600, I'm thinking, oh God, I mean, I've got this far, don't lose it now. That's always what's going through your mind. And my mum's actually flown over for the day as well, so my mum was here, my boyfriend's here. I know my dad will be going crazy at the TV as well, and our plan from the start was to go off hard and see what I could do. So yeah, I knew that they would just be going nuts. If I was starting to get caught, they'd be screaming at me and shouting to go faster. So yeah, it's nice to be on home, like British soil, competing in front of a British crowd. It makes a big difference.
Eilish McColgan is actually qualified for the World Championships in the 1500, the 5,000 and the 10,000 metres. They just basically let her sit beside the pilot,
and
surely.
She's going to talk to Mum.
Yeah, and she's going to talk to Mum, and then she will decide what she's going to do. As ever, though, in the world of athletics, a great event is clouded again by another big drug story, and it is a big drug story.
It's a massive drug story.
Christian Coleman, the American silver medalist in the 100 metres from London 2017, he's the one that many have anointed as the successor to Usain Bolt, but he's been charged this weekend by the American authorities under anti-doping rules, not for failing a test, we should point that out, but for missing 3 tests. Now, the 23-year-old has said he doesn't take any substance. He's hoping to clear his name at a hearing which we understand will be on the 4th of September. The Americans will then make their decision the next day, but he was a real standout potential performer in Doha, and depending on how that hearing goes on the 4th of September, and you know, let's remember and go back to Rio, we had this situation with Lizzie Armitstead, and she was able to prove, of course, that one of her supposed missed tests was because the procedures weren't right, and that could happen here with Christian Coleman. He's not automatically going to be found guilty here. He might get the opportunity. There might have been a protocol that wasn't followed.
But Christine Harugu, of course, missed a whole year.
Yep.
In 2006.
And Christian Coleman could miss a year too. We'll just have to wait, and it's difficult to second guess without knowing the details. It's just a shame, as I say, that we are here talking about good British athletics performances. We talked about Katarina Johnson-Thompson, Adam Gemili, we talked about Dina Asher-Smith, all potential medal hopes. But again, one of the stories that's going to dominate, and unfortunately that's the way it is going to be the Christian Coleman thing, and it will rumble on now till September the 4th. This
is the Anything But Footy podcast. I'm John, he's Michael. We are talking all things Olympic and Paralympic, and we have an Olympic great with us before the end of the show, Laura Kenny, so stay with us for that in the next half an hour or so. Looking elsewhere, the sport continues. This is why we're here week in, week out. The 74th Vuelta a España is underway in cycling until mid-September. It's a 3-week event around Spain. It's the last Grand Tour event of the season, and Britain's Simon Yates, of course, won it last year.
I can't see a cloud in the sky here in Birmingham at the moment. It's been an absolutely glorious day. We've both got the legs out, we've both got shorts on, we've both got polo shirts. So let's talk snowboarding. Well done to Katie Ormerod, who's won silver in her first World Cup appearance for almost 2 years in the big air snowboard event in New Zealand. She broke a hill, you'll remember, very sadly on the eve of the Winter Olympics in 2018. She's on the comeback trail, start of her season, and a silver medal.
Ready, Steady, Tokyo was a huge event, Michael.
So you did there.
Thanks. It wasn't my idea. Ahead of the Olympics next summer. It's a test event in Inoshima in Japan, the venue for the sailing event for the Olympics. And as usual, there was no wind. Well, there was some, and some great racing and a really strong performance from the British guys, following on from the World Championships over the summer. But how disappointing that there was a lack of wind for Giles Scott, the Olympic champion, which meant he finished in bronze in the Finn class, and your mate Hannah Mills,
hi Hannah,
fellow Olympic champion, world champion this summer as well with new partner Eilish McColgan. They were a point off the women's 470. And unfortunately, because of the conditions or lack of them, they had to settle this time for silver, Giles for bronze. And that is an issue. But it was an issue in Weymouth, and it was an issue in Rio. I remember being in Rio with you, and we waited around for a whole day doing nothing.
And it was interesting what Giles Scott was saying. He said obviously it's very disappointing that he didn't get the chance to race and improve on that third position, but that's part of it. That's if you're going to be a professional sailor at Olympic level, unfortunately you're going to have to deal with things like that. What's the alternative? We start building expensive wind machines at sailing venues. You can't do that at Weymouth. You can't do that at the Gloria Marina in Rio, can you? You can't just, the Olympics are expensive enough as it is. You can't put a couple of wind turbines up. The conditions is a factor, and it's something those sailors will have to deal with. They'll ultimately learn ahead of next year that perhaps need to go big and go early, maybe.
Dylan Fletcher and Stuart Bithell also won silver in the 49er class. Charlotte Dobson and Saskia Tiddy also a bronze in the 49er FX. But here's a really interesting story.
Yeah, really interesting.
In the NACRA 17 class.
What's going to happen here?
So John Gibson and Anna Burnett are the silver medalists in this event, test event in Tokyo. Because British Sailing were allowed to enter 2 teams, they did, and Ben Saxton and Nikki Boniface took bronze in that as well. And you think, well, this is great. We've got a silver and a bronze. However, they can only put 1 British crew in for Tokyo 2020 for the Olympics, and you just think. Again, going back like we're here today at the athletics, the selectors have a huge decision between these 2 pairs.
And again, it's something, and it's been an issue in sailing. You look at someone like Giles Scott, who was the Olympic champion in Rio in the Finn class. He might have 3 or 4 Olympic medals in his pocket if it wasn't for Sir Ben Ainslie, because Sir Ben Ainslie was in the Finn class as well. Ben Ainslie was the best sailor in the world. The second best sailor in the world was Giles Scott. But Great Britain could only send 1 to the Olympic Games, and that's why Giles Scott had to wait his turn. Big issue, as you say, for John Gibson, Anna Burnett, Ben Saxton, Nikki Boniface. They'll all be playing the waiting game.
Yeah, they have to pick them at some point. They're still going through their selection process, British Sailing tell us. So at the moment, they don't have to make that decision, but I don't envy that decision.
Yeah, and staying on the water, of course, we've had the World Canoe Sprint Championships in Hungary. We've had a para event going on as well, alongside that as well. And, you know, talking about selections, the para-canoeists have done fantastically well. They've qualified 7 out of the 9 for the Paralympics in Tokyo. I think it was 6 medals over the course of the week as well. And there's been some fantastic performances, you know, in Hungary by our canoeists. So I really think, and we kind of said this on our Tokyo 2020 summer special that we did, I really do think British canoeing are one of the great stories in British Olympic and Paralympic sport at the minute, across both Olympic and Paralympics, as we just mentioned, and not enough people know about it. You know, there's not been the headlines that there should have been about some of the performances we've seen this week.
Big shout out to Charlotte Henshaw. She won 2 of the 3 golds that the British team got in the Paralympic event. She's a former Paralympic swimmer. She was named by the IPC this week as a one to watch before Tokyo. It's a year away, the Paralympics in Tokyo. She's a fan of the podcast.
Yeah, that's why I said hi, Charlotte, because we know she listens.
And the 2-time Paralympic swimmer, reigning world canoe sprint champion. It's her 3rd season in the event, and 2019 just keeps getting better and better. Double world champion in the KL2 and VL3, adding to her first European Championship title and a World Cup victory. I mean, this is great performance.
And you've got people like Laura Sugar as well, who was, you know, racing here. She was an athlete before, and she's switched across to canoeing. She's a relative newcomer, and she's picked up a silver medal. You give her another year to the Paralympics now, and you're looking at a huge return for those para-canoeists. And we should mention as well, in the Olympics, Liam Heath, who we know from Rio, gold medalist there, world champion. He took a year off after becoming a dad. 3 times an Olympic medalist, gold in Rio, as we know. He's qualified for, well, he hasn't qualified, he's qualified GB, a quota place, as they call it, for Tokyo as well. So well done, Liam.
Congratulations to all of them. We're going to talk hockey, we're going to talk badminton, bouldering, and Laura Kenny before the end of the podcast. But we have some big news from the world of eventing.
Yeah, congratulations to Ben Mayer, Scott Brash, Holly Smith, Amanda Derbyshire, all taking part in the European Championship team event. They finished 3rd. Again, that meant that GB qualified a place for Tokyo. Mayer doing fantastically well in the individual event as well. And Sophie Wells on Fatal Attraction as well in the para-equestrian, silver in the dressage. So, yeah, a good week for our equestrian stars too.
Absolutely. The British men and women hockey teams still have to qualify for the Olympics, though, next summer. England women got back to some kind of form at the EuroHockey Championships in Belgium before being trounced 8-0 by the Netherlands, as of course they beat GB famously, or GB beat them famously in Rio in the final in 2016. Goalkeeper Maddie Hinch described that result as one of the worst ever of her hockey career, which is understandable. England nearly bounced back in the bronze match playoff. They lost out in a shootout to Spain 3-2 after it finished 1-1 to finish 4th. The men ended 5th after a 3-0 win over Scotland, avoiding relegation. But both British men and women will now play in the 2-legged Olympic qualifiers on home soil in October and November. So a huge task ahead for the hockey.
and we're sat outside the Alexander Stadium at the moment where the British Athletics Championships has taken place, which will be the final event before this stadium is redeveloped ahead of the 2022 Commonwealth Games.
Have you got a sledgehammer?
Well, I was just thinking that was a JCB that was moving in pretty quickly. Just some badminton news as well on Anything But Footy, and we'll have to hurry through some of these because we've got Laura Kenny to speak to very soon, a 4-time Olympic gold medalist. Well done to Rachel Chung, who's won her third World Badminton title, but she will not be able to compete at the Paralympics because her classification has not been included. We should say happy retirement to Rajiv Usef, who has retired after losing in his event. Out in the mixed doubles in Switzerland at the third round stage, both Marcus Ellis and Lauren Smith and Chris and Gabby Adcock. And one other piece of news as well from the world of Olympic and Paralympic sport on Anything But Footy. Congratulations to Shauna Coxey as well, who's won a couple of medals in the World Championships which are taking place in Japan. In the combined, she won a bronze. There's 3 different disciplines in that. That has secured Team GB a place. She also won the bronze in the bouldering category as well. So well done to Shauna Coxey.
Now, we've promised you Laura Kenny, so let's hear from her. She's been promoting a Team GB event.
Yeah, a really good event as well from Team GB. They've called it the nation's biggest sports day. It's been taking place across this August bank holiday weekend, and the initiative is basically to get people out running, walking, cycling, dancing. There's been archery, squash, bowls, there's been yoga, there's been keep fit as well. And they've had Olympic medalists that we know, people like Kat Copeland, Goldie Sayers, Amy Tinkler, Bryony Page, all supporting the events. And Laura Kenny was at one of the events, 4-time an Olympic gold medalist, of course, and she spoke to Anything But Footy and told us how important getting involved, getting active and participating is.
For me, growing up, we did cycling, and it was a really family-based thing. And then not only that, we then joined our local club, and it became this social environment and something that I really enjoyed the buzz of. Like, you're all there, you've all got the same kind of experiences then, I guess. You're all in it together, and it's just a real nice feeling. I mean, with this event as well, they're bringing back the Games Makers, which was obviously the 2012 slogan for the volunteers that were there helping. And I think the atmosphere and, the buzz that they brought to the Olympics was absolutely unbelievable, and it couldn't have been done without them. So to bring people like that back as well, it does really draw people together and bring everybody in, and it's that kind of environment that is just such a nice feeling to be part of. British public, honestly, are absolutely unbelievable. Well, put it this way, when we went to London 2012, everybody said it won't be the same again. Like, when you go to Rio, don't expect the atmosphere to be the same because, there won't be as many supporters out there. It was absolutely unbelievable in Rio, the amount of people that flew out there. And it wasn't even just people to watch, it was the volunteers again. So many of them were British. I remember, actually, when I crossed the finish line, I came off the track, and you ride down the ramp to get off, and this lady came straight up over to me, and I was thinking, what's this going to be about? And it was just because she'd been in London too, and she just wanted to congratulate me. And the feeling, because it wasn't just the fact she wanted to come say well done to me, the feeling I got from her as well was just unreal. It was just it just felt like we were all in it together. I mean, everyone can dream, can't they? And I never would like to talk about medals and, winning races, but when you enter an event, you obviously want to win a race, I mean, the biggest thing for me, the biggest hurdle, I suppose, is the fact that I've actually got qualified still. So it's funny when people are like, oh, what are your hopes? Because, I mean, initially, just to get selected. Because, the biggest competition for us comes within the Great Britain cycling team. And then, obviously, after that, it's an Olympics. You want to go and do your absolute best. I hope that at the end of this 4-year cycle, I'll be going just as well as I was at the end of the last 4-year cycle.
So Laura Kenny talking about Team GB's nation's biggest sports day. And what I loved about that, Michael, is she talks about the Games Makers and the volunteers, a huge legacy from London 2012, and the fact that she wants to go to Tokyo and do what she did in London and Rio.
Yeah.
So that is win gold medals. And she could, of course, as we mentioned in our special preview for 2020, win 3 with the Madison event being entered as well.
She needs to qualify first, though, as she very sensibly made the point to us there when she was speaking to us on Anything But Footy, your unashamed Olympic and Paralympic podcast. Now, if we miss your sport, do tell us. We're on Twitter at AnythingButF. We're happy to hear from you. You can message us on Instagram, on Facebook as well. Please share, rate us on iTunes or Spotify. You can always drop us an email as well, anythingbutfooty@gmail.com, because we want to hear from you.
And the summer can sometimes be a time for reflection, a time to reset, a time to rest and recuperate. But with the Olympic and Paralympics now less than a year away, for many British athletes, it's time to focus. Week in, week out, and we're all back on track for Tokyo.